So UConn fans are nervous, and I don't know if it's because they don't believe in the team, the coach, or the star player, or a combination of the three. Obviously, I've touched on Paige Bueckers and her assertiveness or lack thereof, which has become a frequent talking point amongst supporters of the Huskies and really fans at large. And, there's been various schools of thought. I mean, one observation I have is that Paige, when she's attempting to ISO score against physical defense, struggles to get her own a bit and lacks that explosive burst to free herself up. And that can be misconstrued as a lack of assertiveness, simply not being able to get there. She's done really well moving without the ball, off ball screens, dribble handoffs, and the like. But there's also the idea that she doesn't have the ball in her hands enough to really get cooking and make those sorts of decisions. And people are putting that at the feet of Gino Auriemma for having her play within the UConn system. And also, Auriemma, I've seen criticized for sending mixed messages. Basically, she's not aggressive enough, but then she doesn't have to do everything because she's got all of her teammates. Nonetheless, you can feel the anxiety around supporters of UConn. And that's because at this point, they have to struggle to believe this is a national championship team. I don't think you can watch the game against USC and the game against Notre Dame and come away thinking this is a national championship team. Now, look, there is more to go in the season, obviously. AZ Fudd should be back and healthy, hopefully, for the long haul. Sarah Strong should only continue to develop, and she is already a hell of a prospect and player. So there are, positives to look forward to. But so far, as I've said, UConn looks a little soft. And I think you can feel that anxiety building amongst their supporters, because if they're looking, in taking a truth serum, they're going to tell you they don't believe this is a national championship team. And of course, this gets talked about on a national level. With Paige Bueckers, it's going to get talked about a ton because she's been sold as the number one pick in the draft, and it hasn't won a championship yet at UConn. And Gino Auriemma has already floated this idea that if she doesn't win, she'll be the best player ever not to win. He said, I'm not saying that. Well, he gave validity to the fact that she would be the best player ever to not win. But he said he's not saying her legacy would take a hit, but he said she's probably playing with that fear because of the perception of her legacy taking a hit. And that's enough to put a lot of pressure on somebody because those are crazy expectations. And Paige has handled all of it, in an exemplary fashion from the way she's conducted herself, but we haven't seen her dominate. And when that's the case, when, we're talking about winning a national championship and being the number one pick in the draft, people expect you to be the best player in the country, and she hasn't been that. And even the UConn faithful are starting to question that. This was a podcast clip that was circulated pretty, ubiquitously from Husky Hoops. I'll put the link in the description. And it was Maria Conlon specifically, her take on the situation that I saw shared a lot. She played at UConn about 20 years ago, I believe, and won a few national championships, so has some credibility.
I don't really care if you can take over a game versus Georgetown.
Right, I agree. I totally agree.
Or Butler.
And in no way did she. I mean, she made some decently big shots the other day, but like I said earlier, the last 2.5 minutes of the game, Sarah Strong wanted the ball and took over and did what we needed to do on both ends. Right. I mean, this kid's scoring, and then now she's going down and she's getting a big rebound on the other end. I mean, she's going to start selling popcorn soon. I'm sure of it. Like, it's crazy.
Look, kids are going to miss shots, Maria, but if you're Bueckers, that little baseline jumper to tie the game, you have got to make that shot.
Not only that, but what are your thoughts? I have 2 questions for you, Joe. One, Sarah Strong misses the last free throw, right? Paige gets the rebound. Now, if you're Paige, 2 things. Let's face it. If this is Diana Taurasi and she gets that rebound, is there any scenario in this planet that she kicks it out to Barbara Turner at the top of the key.
No hesitation. She's
Nope.
going to take that shot all day long.
But
Get
I will say
five.
this. I will say this. I totally agree with you, Maria. But I think two things there. I don't think Paige had full control of the ball. I think all she could do was slap it. And look, Diana is 1,000 times more physical.
Yes.
So she could muscle that up, maybe even draw a foul. But you're right. I mean, if you can get your hands on the ball, both hands on the ball, then you just got to go up to the hoop with it.
All right, so I agree with the Joe there on that one because Paige didn't really have a chance. That's not really a fair criticism on that play. She got the ball and she actually, I think, made a smart play getting out to somebody who could get a realistic shot off, that being Sarah Strong, who's strong enough to get the ball up on the basket. So that part of it I don't necessarily agree with, though when you do play at UConn, you're going to get compared to the UConn greats of the past. So she's going to be living in the shadow of a Diana Taurasi, specifically, I think, because of, the play style. I mean, it's Taurasi, Bird. Those are the players in the backcourt more so than, obviously the great UConn bigs and forwards that have come through there. But Paige came back to school to win a championship. So there's the pressure to do that. She is expected to be the number one pick in the WNBA draft for the Dallas Wings. So there's the pressure in a sense to live up to those expectations. And I think, at some point, the problem is I guess there's nobody else to really go, oh, this person is definitely better than her or higher than her. But at some point, I think you'll start to hear at least the whispers of, oh, is she definitely 100% the number one pick? Or would I be worried about making her the number one pick? But that physicality word came up, and that's the same word I used a little bit there too, where I don't know how often it's necessarily aggressiveness or assertiveness, or just, is it ability or mentality, or a combination of both of those things? And how much of it is on the coach? How much of it is on the player? This is something that they're going to have to work out and figure out fast. I trust Paige's work ethic. There's no question about that. But perhaps also, when you are trying to meet these burdens of expectations, sometimes there's only so much you can do. What if she's just really good and not, transcendent or generational, which is the buzzword. And then, the Gino thing feels like a bit of frustration from the fans too, because they have to kind of choose, all right, who are we going to blame? There's a definition of blame I like, which is a way to get rid of anger and frustration, to place it somewhere else. And that's what I think you see going on with the UConn fan base right now, because they don't really have faith in the team.